Southern African countries have joined calls from the Zimbabwe government for sanctions to be lifted by the US, Britain and the EU, saying they're damaging the region's economy. A Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe report describes the effects of sanctions against Zimbabwe. What key projects have been put in place to reboost the Zimbabwean economy? The EU and US renewed sanctions in 2021, making it 2 decades of continued sanctions to a struggling economy. Sanctions have made it difficult for Zimbabwe banks to have relations with international corresponding banks. In addition, banks can be fined for dealing with sanctioned countries. For example, in April 2019, the US fined the Standard Chartered Bank $18 million for dealing with sanctioned companies. The list goes on and on. Who suffers the most from these sanctions? Of course, it is the ordinary citizens. The elite who took the decisions of land grabs are still enjoying luxurious lifestyle and seem untouched even with targeted sanctions. The West claims the sanctions are aimed at encouraging the government of Zimbabwe to respect democratic principles and institutions and the rule of law. But when we look closely, there are a bunch of countries around the world which are worse than Zimbabwe but do business in hundreds of billions of dollars with the United States and the EU. This brings a new question. Are sanctions not imposed on Zimbabwe as a result of the controversial transfer of lands by Mugabe from white farmers to indigenous Zimbabweans decades ago? Thousands of white farmers were forced from their land by the Mugabe government between 2000 and 2001. The seizures were meant to redress colonial-era land grabs from indigenous Zimbabweans. During the colonial era, white farmers, which made up less than 1% of Zimbabwe's population, continued to own 73.8% of the most fertile land suited for intensive cash crop cultivation and livestock grazing, in addition to generating 80% of the country's total agricultural output. This was a vital contribution to the economy, which was still underpinned by its agricultural exports. In the year 2000, Mr. Mugabe spearheaded the seizure of the land from some 4,000 white farmers. This act ruined his relations with the West. His critics within Zimbabwe said, the land was handed out to his political allies and many of the beneficiaries were not given the equipment or training to farm productively, leading to the collapse of the agriculture-based economy. Fast forward from there to present-day Zimbabwe, the new government is dealing with strides on the matter. A separate compensation scheme has been launched for local white farmers. They have not been offered land, but the new government after Mugabe has promised to compensate white farmers, an option that was not on the table with Mugabe. The compensation is at the sum of $3.5 billion, £2.6 billion, for seized infrastructure. With the reparation of ties going on with the West, Zimbabwe has also been building strong ties with its good old friend in the Far East, China. Relations with China dates back to the days of the liberation struggle. The Chinese stood with Zimbabwe when the rest of the world turned their back. They had been a great political ally and now are shifting to be a great economic partner too. So far, China has financed several strategic projects that are set to reshape the Zimbabwean economy. Here are 3 major sectors comprising of several projects that are set to change the face of Zimbabwe like never before. Number 3. The energy sector. Until now, Zimbabwe had no prospects of oil or gas resources of its own and have been completely dependent on imports for this source of energy. A pipeline from the Mozambique port of Beira to Mutare provides the majority of Zimbabwe's refined petroleum and diesel oil. The rest comes from South Africa. But today, things are fast changing. A multi-million-dollar exploration is underway. These heavy machines are carrying out a geological survey that are vibrating the earth to accurately map the underlying geology for drilling oil and gas wells. The Zambezi Valley Basin in Mozarabani is believed to be one of the largest underexplored interior rift basins in Africa. Experts say there would be millions of barrels of oil discovered and trillions of cubic feet of gas. As expected, if the oil exploration is successful, the economy of Zimbabwe would change dramatically. In addition, Zimbabwe wants to end its over-reliance on fossil fuels like coal to generate electricity. In addition to oil and gas, Zimbabwe has been expanding its hydroelectric power production capability. 2 new power units have been commissioned at Shariba. The project was done by China through the Sinohydro company. The whole project is worth over $500 million and has a capacity of 1,050 megawatts of power. After the Shariba came the Hwane Power Station project, with a deal of over $1.5 billion and is giving Zimbabwe a capacity of over 1,200 megawatts. This energy is very vital for industries and startups that are growing by the day around. Number 2. The transport sector. A plan is in place to construct 4 strategic airports in addition to the expansion of existing airports. The first airport is in Binga in the north of Zimbabwe. It is a tourism hotspot. It would be a springboard to one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Victoria Falls, which is a few kilometers away. A runway has already been constructed. What remains is a complete airport. The investment of the project is $173 million. The second airport is earmarked for Mutare, at a price tag of $173 million still. Mutare is Zimbabwe's border city to the east. The city is of strategic importance given its proximity to Mozambique's port of Beira after the Indian coast. It links well-renowned tourist resort towns such as Mvomba and Nyanga. Mutare is a major business hub surrounded by diamond, gold mines, timber, tea estates and an ethanol plant. The airport would consist of a new runway, a taxiway, an apron, a terminal building and access roads. The third airport would be constructed in Shariba. Shariba is famous for its game park, multi-million-dollar fishing industry, boat cruises and Zimbabwe's main hydropower station. Also, the railway system in Zimbabwe is going to see a boost as China Railway signs a deal to invest $1.2 billion for a high-speed train route project between Harare and Bulawayo. This would better integrate the railway network with neighboring countries and boost trade. Furthermore, negotiations for a metro rail within Harare is underway. In addition to this, the almost completed strategic Beitbridge-Chirundu highway is in the making. It has a price tag of $1.3 billion and consists the lifeblood between Zimbabwe and South Africa. On the foothills of Mount Hamden, the position of the new parliament building of Zimbabwe was proposed. The construction of Zimbabwe's new parliament building, which China sponsored at 100% with its own money, has reached its last stage. The new 6-story structure on the outskirts of Harare, Zimbabwe's capital, is one of the latest Chinese-funded projects in southern Africa. Urban planning and restructuring. The government of Zimbabwe announced its plans to build a new capital city in Mount Hampden. The new capital will reportedly have a parliament building, a presidential palace, the Supreme and High Courts, the Reserve Bank, posh suburbs, hotels and modern shopping malls. On the foothills of Mount Hamden, the position of the new parliament building of Zimbabwe was proposed. The construction of Zimbabwe's new parliament building, which China sponsored at 100% with its own money, has reached its last stage. The new 6-story structure on the outskirts of Harare, Zimbabwe's capital, is one of the latest Chinese-funded projects in southern Africa. The main conference space will seat 650 people, whereas the former one could only handle 100. Coming to the end of this video, we would conclude that there is tremendous hope for Zimbabwe in the nearest future, taking into consideration the strategic projects put in place. The highest resource of Zimbabwe itself is the people. Zimbabweans by nature are very welcoming and friendly to foreigners, and the tough economic situation has not significantly affected the country's safety for visitors. This alone is a multiplier effect to the tourism industry, which has a huge potential in Zimbabwe.